record this over on this computer. But Senator John L. Scott is with us today. He is fantastic. He is a bundle of energy. And he is, as my good friend Frank Catolo used to say, he is he's like a gerbil in a batting cage. He is shot out there. He's ready to go. And I am so happy that we have got him on here today to talk about the Institutes of Innovation and information is formed to grow historically Black colleges and universities and help businesses create a classroom to job pipeline, which thank God you're stepping up and doing this, man. Because I'll tell you, there is so much shenanigans going on out there when it concerns the job world and when it concerns Black education. That is the one thing that I'm trying to remember who it was, but there is a famous individual in history that said the most dangerous thing in the world is an educated Black man. And I have seen that over and over. and I think part of the reason why they said that is because for whatever reason
they just don't know any better. It's okay.
We don't want. This is the thing. We don't want them educated, and we don't want to let them vote. It's amazing to me.
It's unreal. It's unreal.
I'm like, what is the deal with this? But before we get into that, I want to talk about what you guys are doing. This is an absolutely astounding thing that you're doing. More than 50% of South Carolina's African-American college graduates come from one of the state's 7 historically Black colleges and universities. A brand new program, the SCIII, has just been formed. Tell us a little about this, my friend.
It's called SCIII.
SCIII. Look at that. I read it like a Roman numeral, baby.
It's a very, very exciting program.
Yes.
I began to think about this program probably 10, 15 years ago. Back in 2001, we finally in the state, after a lot of work I put in to get in the state, a state-run lottery. By 2002, we began to educate those young people of lottery funds. But what we found out, colleges and universities, especially the larger institutions, raised the cost of tuition. And so again, that put the young people out. And then we looked at different categories such as Georgia and other states in terms of funds. But when you raise the cost of tuition again, you put the kids of color and kids who come from disadvantaged families in a bad spot in terms of being able to get an education. So this thing went on. We had a luncheon, and we had a discussion of the luncheon, whether our historical Black colleges have met their role, and it was time to phase them out. I became very upset after that luncheon. In 2018, I ran for lieutenant governor, and still the process of what do I do to try to fix some of these issues that are out there. I've been in the governor's office, my earliest part coming out of college in mid-70s, and got a chance to see South Carolina, and I can tell you not a whole lot has changed. And so I had all these different things going through my mind. Then I thought about what we had done 25 years ago, 30 years ago when I came to the legislature, as we watched manufacturers go out and we began to recruit large corporations and companies coming to South Carolina. But we made one major mistake. We put most of those large companies in large urban cities.
Yes.
And that meant that all of the smaller schools, HBCUs, would not be at the table to be able to benefit from the growth, development, the tax base, and exchange of scholarships and others that the other schools, the other large schools would be able to do. And so there we were. And so as I say from 2010 coming forward, we really began to see it really develop. We saw the 3 largest schools, Clemson, USC, MUSC, really benefit greatly from the lottery funding, and we gave them what's called endowed chair funding, $30 million. We created what was called education enhancement program money for for the HBCUs and two other majority schools, which are small schools. And so for 20 years, this thing just kind of sat there. They were spending money basically for maintenance and doing what they could for disadvantaged students. So I'm watching in the 2020 census tract, the smaller counties, 22 to 46 counties lost population. And I can tell you those counties lost population with the exception of Columbia, of course, where the HBCUs were located. And I saw in the low country area, we've got MUSC, that Charleston area, we saw three major corporations come in that area.
Yes.
Boeing, Volvo, and Mercedes. But we also saw those companies rob the smaller counties of employees and jobs. Everybody relocated on top of having pandemic and what we saw in the education school process. And so I got involved in a battle to expand broadband. And we do have broadband. I bought the three major players together. We cut a deal and we got broadband. And still yet trying to fix the schools. So we took an inventory of all the different things the schools offered and looked at the things they were trying to achieve and came to birth of each one of them have their own name. III is an institution to itself. The Institute of Innovation and Information is the technical arm to help the schools. South Carolina State College being in the base, it's called Business, Environment, Communication, Transportation. The Clyburn Center is down there, but it needed a lot of help to do transportation. And now with the new move with electrical cars coming, the chips coming, it's a great opportunity to be able to attract a company to come into that base. I'm a business major, accounting major from South Carolina State, and also economic major, so I understand that environment. Next door to it is Claflin College. We've got a shortage of teaching and nursing. So they're called the Institute of Teaching and Nursing. They even have two master's degrees you can also earn. So they work in conjunction with the technical school and recruiting young people to come in. And there's Bohees College down in that same group. It's called the Rural Development, Bohees College Institute of Rural Development. And so there you go. So the challenge now is, what can I do with these institutes just there? Because you've got four others, two in Columbia, one in Sumter, and the other one up near Charlotte. And so we developed names for all of them, looking at the courses, curriculum, and the things they could offer. And what could we do better to be able to track and create an open line of communication, scholarships, internships, all kinds of changes young people could gain exposure to and work with corporations. So it means they had to create some private public partnerships to come in these schools. And so we're working on that. We even looked at March College. March College is a network of information, technology, and security, NIC. And so they do cybersecurity, but it's Shaw right next door. So why aren't they working with the military in doing cybersecurity? Some of these things just made sense, but there was no group to actually service to make the connection. So we start making those connections. We go all the way up to Rock Hill, and there's Clinton College, the last one to come on from a 2-year to 4-year HBCU course. I helped get that passed too. And with them come, they're called WAC, Wellness and Community Health. And so we're connecting the hospital and health services to them and provide preventive ways of not getting certain diseases and how you better take care of yourself. And so we're working on all that process. That's Allen and Benedict. Benedict is called BEST, Business, Entrepreneurship, Science, and Technology. Allen, which we're already moving forward, they're called the Boeing Institute of Civility. Now, civility is something that you're going to like because it's wide open, dealing with diversity, how we adjust on the job. And so with Boeing being their partner, and that school is supposed to open up, I think, the end of this month, that institute. It took the old Columbia Waverly Hospital, which was an African-American hospital from the 30s and 40s and 50s. They spent about $10-15 million and made an institute out of it. Beautiful. Oh. And so we're waiting on them. And so what we did, we looked at how do we make all this work? The technical assistance arm cannot go after the money. So we've got to create an entity to spend their time going after money. So we created a public foundation and put private business people on the foundation. The foundation is run by Dr. Robert Jennings of Atlanta. The institute is run by Dr. Glenn Nelson, who also was from Atlanta, who relocated here. And so we take the influence of what they're doing in Atlanta, which is so much progressive, and that's where you've got a lot of federal dollars, state dollars. So they have a much larger lottery we do, and a lot of private sector dollars. And we took a look at all of what they're doing and how can we make some of what they're doing, our stuff work. And it's working. It's really working. And
I'm
so,
just amazed that you've been able to put this much, because you hear the horror stories all the time about, oh, these elected officials, they don't get anything done, blah, blah, blah. You've been very busy, sir.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You should be commended for this, Senator.
Well, I'm happy when I can educate these children. I mean, that's my goal.
I was discussing education with someone the other day, and I just the way that education has just kind of either descended down or non-existent over the last several years. And I'm so glad when I hear things like this that you guys are making this work. And I think it's great that you're able to get the people, like you were mentioning with getting the broadband. You got everybody together.
Right. Hey, listen, I brought these guys in my office.
Why can't we do this? Why can't more people do this? We need to clone you, Senator, and put you in every state across the country.
I want these guys in my office one night. I know they wanted to go home. It was after a meeting was about 8 o'clock. I said, well, gentlemen, we're not going home till we get a deal.
My man. My man. I love that.
And so the deal kind of sat there for a while. We got it worked out. And so it went back to judiciary. And God bless him, he's deceased now. The chairman of Senate Finance said to me, well, John, after the meeting, I need you to meet me in my office. I was okay. I didn't know what it was. I thought he wanted to talk. I got in here with 3 players. They had hit a roadblock again. I said, gentlemen, let me remind you, we have a deal. Get this done. So we've got broadband. And when you talk about communication, with South Carolina State being in that rural base,
yes,
it is so much it can do, and just getting the information out to make it work. This was a trick. South Carolina was looking at, after the thing we had with Scanner and the cooperative, Santee Cooper, selling Santee Cooper. And I'm like, this is going to mess my deal up. So I began to fight that because I don't want to sell a corporation and then I got to rent space back from them.
Yes.
To me, that doesn't make sense. So I'm going to sell it to a private company. They're going to turn back and lease it back to me. The right-of-ways and easement, that was not going to work. And so we got it worked out. Santee Cooper then created the cooperatives. But the cooperatives, out of 5 million people, the cooperatives have 2,000 customers. So that's my broadband communication. I'm already in the household. So it makes more sense to let the cooperatives work with with Charter, who was also at the table. And also you had rural telephone companies at the table. And AT&T, they all, everybody.
Yeah.
And so we got the deal worked out. And we have broadband in the state.
Well, that's the one thing that I think more people do not really get, especially across the country, is how important broadband and getting internet for folks, not just, in some of these rural places,
right,
but these, nobody realizes just how important that is. Well, Talk to us a little bit about this.
I think we learned a lot from the pandemic when we saw how far behind our kids became, and there's some discussion how do we fix that gap? And I've got some ideas how we fix that gap, and probably some of that fixing that gap it's going to end up kids that have to go year-round schools till they catch up.
Yes.
The other part of these institutes I have in these rural communities, some of these college students are going to have to go to the high school, the middle school, elementary school, and help the teachers because we've got teacher shortage.
Yeah.
Play catch up. And if a kid really want to know whether or not they want to teach, let them go work with the kids.
That's right. That's right.
And you can really figure it out. I had a summer program one time in 3 different gymnasiums in the district. I was told my pregnancy rates were up, my retention was lost. So I developed a program. And that program I used some college kids who got a stipend because I couldn't afford to pay them a salary. Yeah. I got the high school kids to work with the college kids, and the high school kids and the college kids taught the middle school, and the middle school helped them with the elementary school. We could feed them, we could take them on the trip, but we didn't have a whole lot. And so that these were kids giving back. And so the program had 300 kids in it, 300 kids. I said, we can't take them 100 at each site. And to showcase their talent, they came about once a week in a large location. They had talent shows, things that kids enjoy doing. Everything went well.
It just takes a little bit of effort.
That's all.
That's all it takes. Just a little bit of effort there, Senator.
Sometimes the resources are right there. They just need to be utilized a different way.
Need to be utilized and executed. You're completely correct on this. So what has been the feedback that you've gotten on this new project with everything?
Well, of course, educators are taught to be educators.
Yes.
And to get them to understand that the school is a business, and sometimes business have different layers of business within your corporation. Yes. And to get them to understand, I don't want to just give you money. I want to see what you can do with some of the money I give you that be able to help me to attract corporations to come to you to give you some more money.
Yes.
And so we're watching the corporations buy into this concept. And we're also watching these college presidents rethinking. Now, for 100 years, my major name out there has been Claflin. Yeah. Now my major name out there is teaching. It's the Institute of Teaching Environmental. Teaching and nursing. Okay, TANA, like the Titanic, the Titanic. Yeah. And so that's a big move. It simply says I'm moving heavily toward getting better teachers and more nurses for the state. I am no longer just a school education. I am part of the growing corporation to improve the total environment of the state. That's a whole different play.
Just absolutely. We have got a great guest with us today. Senator John Scott is with us. He is amazing. Just the work that you've put in on this and the fact that you've been able to accomplish what you have with all this is just phenomenal. There is not enough words in the English language for me to put you over about how great this is. One of the things that I touched on, but when we first started, was one of the things that it's education,
right,
and it's voting. Right. One of the things that I have noticed over the last couple of years, just all over the country, right, starting to do these voter ID laws, and they always the righties love to say, well, illegal immigrants are voting and all this stuff. I have been around a ton of minorities, and I have been, in fact, just fairly recently, I went and renewed my driver's license.
Excellent.
Oh my God, what a mess that is. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this going, no wonder you got people that don't have IDs. I guess my question is for all the people, all the political people that go, well, we need to have IDs. Well, what can we do to make it easier for people to go get an ID?
Well, I think the challenge is.
What do you think about this, Senator?
And before we do that, South Carolina just passed early voting.
Yes. Yes.
Trust me, I sent the bill to the House several times. And so they finally passed the bill and sent it back. But at least I'm on the Senate version of the bill, and we got it done.
Yeah.
The challenge is not necessarily identification, but whose identification will we accept?
Yes.
Does it have to be a DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles?
I'll tell you that list they've got at the DMV. I'm looking at this list going, I don't even know if I still have any of this stuff.
And so, I know that in the past people have stolen individual identification, and that's an issue too. Yeah. We tighten up the laws for fraud using people's identification, slows that down. Anytime you get in tough sentences for it, you break it up. Yeah. But the challenge is, if I've been in the service and I've got a service ID, I may not look young as I was in there, but guess what? I'm going to put that number down. And that number doesn't come up with me. I'm going to send public safety over to pick you up. So,
yes.
Yeah, so part of the challenge in there is, for most of the motor vehicle operation, is to create a security check too. Yes. And right now it is easier to do that because we went through this process. If you're going to catch the airplane, you've got to have certain things on your identification. Completely. And so that's a national database to do it. And so as we move more and more to national database, also these IDs are in the national database too.
Yes.
And so you can go online and do it, and you can use your photo and do it. But the challenge is, if you create fraud, what are the penalties of it? That's going to be the key. Tighten up the penalties, and you'll have less folk trying to do it. Now, if people can be able to create an identification and go across the country, I mean, some of you're going to catch and some of you not. Yeah. But eventually, if you stay long enough, you're going to get caught. But the challenge is, when you do get caught, what are the penalties when you get caught?
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing is sometimes these penalties are like a slap on the wrist.
Right.
And it's like, are you kidding me?
If it's jail time, you get their attention.
Yeah.
Every time. Well, I want to go back to all of that. Most of these real discussions about identification, voter registration, voter education, that discussion has got to go back to the college campus.
Yes.
These young people have got to get involved. Hey, they're twice times smarter than we are. They can do more with a cell phone than I can ever guess to do. Let them help us.
They're doing everything on the phone but talking on it. So.
Right. If you've got a modern day car, a simple thing as a chip, that America now is going to invest with $275 billion, creating about 75 plants within the U.S. to create a small chip to make it all go.
Right.
Let these kids help us to do it. Electric cars, part of that transportation thing that I talked about at State College. Let them help the co-op create these electrical stations in these areas. These kids know a lot more about things than we do. These kids are going to work for major corporations where they're always posting something. Let them discover early. If you're going to work in secured areas, there are certain things that you just don't do. And let's stop that nonsense your freshman year, because I can't clean up the mess you made in high school. But at least going forward, you know what you're getting into.
Well, and Senator, you are completely correct when it comes to letting the younger and the youth get involved. One of the things that I absolutely love is the fact that statistics they're going towards the fact that younger people are more democratic and more progressive.
Correct.
Scares the hell out of people a lot of times. I love the fact that they're starting, to get to the point where they're understanding all these things, and every election cycle, it gets younger and younger and younger and younger. You brought up something that you seem to be Mr. Fix-It here today, so I'm going to throw this one at you. I think it's great. Everybody's going to the electric vehicles and all these things.
Right.
But the issue that I have is, why don't they fix the power grid? Because if all these people plug their cars in at once, you're going to have all sorts of issues. And one thing that I think would be great, and you did this with your program.
Right.
You got corporations involved. Why can't somebody somewhere go, hey, we need to get this power grid fixed. Let's get some corporation to let's have them do it. We'll give them some tax breaks and give them some money.
Well, those who, I'm 4 generations of business people.
Yes.
And
yes.
and those who will benefit from electric cars, you'll see those who are in the petroleum business who sell gas.
Yes.
Won't be selling gas. They'll be selling electricity. Simply because
I'm gonna bring something else up. This is another thing, Senator. You've just made an argument that I've been saying for months.
Right.
These I can't stand watching some of these people on conservative media. Or I go to the gym and I get around these really old guys that are big time. Oh my God, this, that, and the other. The sky's falling. It's all Joe Biden's fault.
Right.
The thing that I want to know, Senator, we've got Senator John Scott with us today. He is fantastic. Right. He is like shot out of a cannon today. One of the things that I want to know about with all this stuff is, if we've got the power grid and we're going to get this fixed, and right. We're doing all these amazing things.
Okay.
And you mentioned earlier that the biggest people that are going to be having problems with this is the petroleum and all that. If the goal is, because I watch Fox, I listen to the righties on radio, and it's all about, we got to have all the money. Okay. If you got to have all the money, why can't a petroleum person go invest in solar and wind and make all the money?
Okay, so I'm British Petroleum, a basic London corporation.
Yes.
I'm buying crude, and I don't know what crude is today. Probably $150, $120.
Oh, I'd say. Yeah.
And so, do you think because my product line changed, I'm gonna still be buying crude? Crude will be $15, $20 a barrel with nobody to use it.
Yeah.
So I'm going to change and move to the market design where I'm still looking for my spread in profit, 20 to 30% or 50%. And so if there's no longer gas, I'm going to take those pumps up. I'm going to bring in the best electricians I can. And it's right where I have those pumps, I'm going to put those charging stations.
That's right.
Put up. You go.
Let's make all the money, man.
It's just, the state's going to pick up its tax, because we're just trying to discuss now how we get paid as the electric cars come, so we can continue to do the roads. And so it's not about what the cost of the gas is, because gasoline also has state and federal taxes to it. It's what my point spread is. How much profit I'm going to make out of it.
Too, because that's what it all comes down to at the end.
Yeah. You get, you're getting $4 of it. I'm getting 30 cents on a gallon. I'm happy. Only thing I'm doing is getting your money, using your money, and paying and spending it again to buy more petroleum. And so it's going to change. It'll be like any other product. I mean, just think about when folk first got electricity at the house. They just stopped buying wood. They quit stacking up wood. Like, okay. And so it's called just changing partners. It's still business as usual.
One of the things that's kind of going on here locally is that there is it's so strange. I would rather live where you are, because I don't think it's as strange as
strange. It's strange everywhere.
It's strange everywhere. But there is a town. They have become a town. And they have decided they're done with paying the high prices to the electric company. So they're going to go solar and wind.
Okay.
Well, the town they leased the land from has decided that since they're in the back pockets, I mean, the electric company won't let them do it.
Right.
How do we get to the point where we let people embrace alternative energy and not have to worry about the old school brick and mortar energy companies going, no, we're going to lose money?
Well, I think that, Chad, when you go to solar and wind, I think the challenge has been with larger communities is who will accept a solar farm.
Yes.
That's the challenge. They're
Yeah.
not the British thing. The other challenge,
no, because we every year, or up until the pandemic, we would go to Vegas, and you would see these solar, installations all over Vegas, and I'm like, wow, that's not really appealing to the eye. So yes, I understand what you're saying.
and so those who have solar panels on top of their homes, the challenge is if my panel is 25 years old and it's time for me to change my roof, I've got to pay somebody to take that panel down. And that panel now is no good to me because they've got something that's much better. And so those are some of the challenges, cost. And so is it more cost prohibited to just continue to get electricity? Yeah. Or does it make sense? I just finished paying for the panel. Now I got about another panel and another roof. And so it's all about dollars and cents. And so in time, we're going to work through those things. Just not yet. We've even seen some of the solar energy products for hot water as well as for heating and cooling. But it requires for you, rather than depending on the sun, is dependent upon drilling in the ground.
Yes.
The heat of the earth. And so is it the heat of the earth better, which means at the time I built the house, I built it so I'm pulling what I need from the ground to be able to heat and cool. So it may not end up being what we're talking about. It may be a whole different product that gets us moving where we need to go. And by the way, I'm in the real estate business over 40 some years. So I've seen a whole lot of things coming up.
I bet you've seen all sorts of crazy things go through with the real estate business. So you bring up being in the real estate business. I see all this doom and gloom all over the place. One of the things that Joe Biden had proposed before he became president, which I thought this was a tremendous idea. I know someone talked him out of this. I know somebody talked him out of this because he was pushing this thing for a while. But his idea was he wanted to give people the ability to buy a home. He thought everybody should have a home. And I would listen to the righties and all these guys, Glenn Beck, all these guys. And they would go, oh my God, I can't believe Joe Biden's going to give away houses. Well, the thing that these guys don't understand, and you being in the real estate business, okay, if let's say this would have went through and Joe Biden would have said, hey, I'm going to give, I would love if he would have said this, I'm going to give Jiggy Jaguar a home. Right. Okay, here's what's going to go on. I'm going to go out and I'm going to put solar panels on the house. I'm going to probably paint it. I'm going to, put a fence up. I'm going to put stuff in the backyard. Okay, guess what? I got to go to Home Depot. I got to go to the hardware store. I got to go all over the place. So now everybody's making money. And I'm not just going to do this one time. And the only reason I'm doing this is because she's sitting over there. But I have a girlfriend who buys a nude barbecue grill like every year. Okay, here's the deal. You're spending money all the time. Why was the Joe Biden house idea a bad idea?
Well, really, it wasn't a bad idea. The Joe Biden idea becomes a good idea if the person who's buying the house can afford to have a house.
That too.
It is much larger than me just placing you in a house.
Yes.
And so I think what we saw, there are some factors that put us in a position to be able to buy our house. We moved from $7.25 an hour, and the public said, we just not going to work for that anymore. So it's about $15 an hour.
Yes.
So you wouldn't go to 8.25, you wouldn't go to 10. So the public said, you're going to go to 15. So if you go to McDonald's, you went to 15. And so what happened is that those corporations no longer have all those employees. it's probably faster to get out your car to go on the inside to get a burger than it is to go through the line. And so that's the cost. And so also being responsible to be able to get in the house. Now, we've seen a lot of programs of 235 to 265s, all kinds of programs. And so to get a person in the house with a no down payment program is what we saw in the past. But again, you have to be still credit worthy. I can't just put you in credit worthy.
That too, because and see this was another thing. And this is where I sort of kind of seen the argument of, okay, we don't want to just give everybody a house. Because I remember back when I think it was President Obama did the, as they called it, the Obama phones, where he made sure everybody had a phone, which still to this day, I thought that was a tremendous program because it's just like with the broadband. Everybody needs broadband. I think everybody needed a phone, but you run into issues where if I give who's he what's it over here a phone and he's not responsible and he breaks it, then he's going to turn around and go, I want another phone.
Right. And that's not the way it works. Well, you know, there are some programs.
Same thing. I break my house. I want Joe Biden to give me another house, John.
well, believe it or not, there are some programs out there, even if you're part of the Section 8 community.
Yes.
Getting subsidy.
Yes.
They move the ball from 30-year program to a 40-year program.
Yeah.
So you own a house, but for 40 years, you got to pay for that house unless you come into some money. The other problem is a lot of folk don't understand maintenance of a house.
That too.
Okay, so I accrued a lot of equity in the house over 20 years, and I got 20 years more to go, but I've done nothing to the house.
Yeah.
So I sell the house. I sell the house and can't afford to get another house.
Yeah.
And then also being responsible to be able to make your payment. I earn the income, but I won't make my payments.
That too.
And so you create a housing stockpile that you still have to go back through all of it again. You have to recycle it again and put it back in the market. And so what you're going to do with that, those who buy, and I used to buy a bunch of it, we're going to just buy it, we're going to rehab it, and we're going to put it back in the market price. And these folks are going to be priced completely out of the market. So on the front end, it sounds good, but long term, it's tough.
Yeah. We have got Senator John Scott with us today. What would be one thing that you would love to see happen nationally that maybe you're working on there in your home state, or that you've seen, or that you've had conversations with somebody? What would be some things that you would love to see, you know, the Democratic Party or even Democrats and Republicans, I know this is odd, work together and get something to put together? What would be some things that you would want to say?
I'm a 34-year veteran.
Yes.
Being an elected official.
Yes.
I've been in this thing as half of my life. and one of the things is that I don't think we're that far off with things. I think the issue is, what do we do to get it done?
Yes.
The other part is that some believe we can take a shortcut to get it done. Others are on the Democrat Party side. We have learned through hard schools of hard knocks, you can do it and have to do it again. And if you keep getting hit upside the head by doing the same thing the same way, it's not going to work. And some of these new ideas that people are coming up with that invade people's privacy and deal with their livelihood, how they rear their children, is creating the biggest problem of all of it. Now, you remember in the past, you used to have the Christian Coalition, you had the Republicans, and then you had the real conservative group.
Oh yeah.
And we saw all
Foundation and all that.
Yeah, and we saw all of them come together, and so they've got so many different factions within their own party that really and truly they're not sure what to do. Yeah. Democrats are a party of ideas, and they invite your ideas sometime, and sometimes they don't. But it's still because you're independent enough to still be able to take your ideas and create something with it. Republicans don't work that way. Either in line or you don't. And so,
oh my Lord, nowadays I don't even you know, what one of the things that I remember growing up is the Republican Party was all about conservatism,
Conservative issues.
and all of a sudden, George W. Bush and all of them get in there, and they're spending like drunken sailors.
Right.
And now you've gotten to the point where I don't even know what the hell the Republican Party is. I look at some of these people and I don't expect you to comment, but I know that you'll get it here.
Right.
I watch these debates for these primaries, and then I see these, midterm elections that are upcoming, and I look at the Republican candidate in some of these states, and I'm like, is this a Saturday Night Live sketch? What is going on with some of this?
Everything goes. I mean, but what's missing in that whole ingredients
Yes,
is that young independent voter.
that too.
And that's a growing divide between Democrats and Republicans. And as that divide continues to grow, they have the flexibility of moving back and forth from either party to get elected. And they'll take a look at how the voting is handled in that particular district, be it congressional, state, Senate, whatever. And that's the way they're going to react. And so they're not moving us forward. They're just kind of playing back and forth between the two. And that's where the biggest divide is always going to be. And there's nothing substantial that's done.
Nobody's moving forward.
No.
And then on top of this, you have, one of the things that is always, it was entertaining to me for a little bit. Now it just gets annoying. But I turn on like Fox News or some of these right wing guys, and they always go, "Oh, Joe Biden is sold out to the progressive left," and I'm like, what TVs are you watching, guys?
I'll tell you, asked that question after the first of the year when people get that 9% cost of living increase and their Social Security check. Ask them, are you Republican or Democrat? If you don't think he needs to give you the money, just send it back. Republican, Democrat, you don't want the money, send it back. And see how many folks gonna send that check back.
I used to, one of the things, and I watch sports a lot. Right. Big sports guy. I watch professional wrestling, and I'm a huge WCW mark.
Right.
Today, love WCW, but I always hate it when these WCW guys get on TV and they're like, "Oh yeah, it sucked back then," and I always want to say, you kept cashing the check, though.
No question, they made plenty of money. The buddy coach.
The only guy, Senator, I can't believe I'm talking with Senator John Scott about pro wrestling. The only guy that I've ever respected that's been a pro wrestler who's complained and then never cashed the check was the last year of Rey Mysterio Jr.'s contract in WWE before he left for a little bit.
Right.
There was a story that got out that every time they'd mail him a check, he'd stick it on a desk. And he never cashed it because he didn't like the direction of things in the company. And I'm like, the only guy in the history of the world who complained but never went and cashed the check.
Doesn't make good sense. Ask the Ric Flairs of the world. When Ric Flair's capes are selling for hundreds of thousands of dollars because some museum is now trying to collect them all. Unreal.
Living down in Florida, he's a big Trumper too, which is so strange to me.
But it's a business. It's a business. It's a
Flair, Hogan, all these guys, they're all Trumpers.
I'm gonna take you back, Buddy Coates. I'm go way back. So these guys have made tons of money, right, all over the world, but it's entertainment. And I think a lot of politics has moved to being.
Oh yeah. Oh, you better believe.
You don't get a whole lot.
I honestly think the whole Donald Trump thing is he was buddies with Vince McMahon for decades. It's all a work, baby. It's all a work.
No question. But,
so what do you think is some as far as like, I know that everybody and their brother is saying, oh, the midterms.
Fine.
The thing I've always said is that if people don't like what's going on, go vote them out. If you don't like what they're doing, go vote them out. Why is it that both sides, every time we get ready for midterms, is it fundraising? Is that why they're doing it?
No,
What is it? Why everybody's always like, this is the most important election in the history of the world? I thought the last one was.
I think the whole thing is who can get whose agenda through.
That too.
The other part is how much dirt can we dig up on the top presidential candidate or the former candidate?
Yes.
And what effect will that have on a race? And I probably didn't even know them and never even met them in most cases. And so to go back and dig up something on Joe Biden.
Well, speaking of
2 years ago. Yeah. And so to try to get around all these folks we put in jail who went to Washington on January the 6th. Three of them in the paper today.
You bring up Joe Biden. I want to get your take on the fact. What is the righties' obsession with Hunter Biden? Every time they make a big deal about Hunter Biden on TV, I'm like, is he the president?
That's the only.
Explain this to me, Senator.
Listen, you got so much dirt on the other side. You're putting people in jail all the time. The committee has yet to conclude, and folk are really worried about the conclusion. I think it's in a couple of weeks right before the election. They're really worried about what else is going to come out of it. So the only thing we can do is find something else to try to distract the public. But people aren't crazy. They're going to continue to watch this thing.
People aren't crazy. I don't know. I've seen some people at these Trump rallies. I don't know. Senator.
That's
the pro wrestling part of it. That's the entertainment part of it.
Their names haven't been called for January 6th. They get real sense when they go for that federal judge.
That too. So I appreciate you spending as much time as you have, my friend. I would definitely love to do this again at some point. Before we let you go, how do we follow all the progress with this new program, this South Carolina Institutes of Innovation and Information, all the stuff, my friend? Give us as they say on talk radio, give us the plugs here.
Well, let me say this to you. We are still developing websites. We are still working with the 7 institutes for their websites, which will be connected to our website. And so when I come back on your next program and your next show, I'll be able to give you more than that. But if you just need a direct contact person, call our director, Dr. Gleneth Nelson. Our number is 803-707-0649. 803-707-0649. I can assure you, once we link up these 8 websites all together, that should be a ton of information that's out there. And so we're moving much faster than we thought we would be moving. And so it's just so much happening at one time. Also, we'll be able to link you through Dr. Nelson back over to the foundation and to others. I know everybody, and I told the staff today, forget my website up. I know I got you busy doing a whole lot of other stuff, but we're going to make sure we come back and we get that information to you. There's 105 HBCUs, and some of them have already called us, want us to give up information, some kind of assistance, so they also can do the same thing. But once we perfect it and we know it, we got all the bugs out of it, we're going to begin to share it.
Well, you are amazing. This has been just a fun interview. I have looked forward to this all day. You're one of these guys that's a real, real fighter for everybody, and you're trying to get things done. So, Senator, it has been my honor and a privilege to chat with you. I look forward to doing this again at some point. And we talked about a little bit of everything: education, pro wrestling, everything. And if it's not
gonna be fun, why do it?
That too. Well, Senator, I appreciate it, my friend, and I will talk to you soon. Have yourself a blessed day, my man.
And you too. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you much. Appreciate it.